Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. Happy Wednesday. Folks, today's show is going to be a little bit different. In just a few moments, I'm going to be joined by the former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich. You may have heard his name in the news over the last few weeks, over the last few years, over the last 10 plus years. He's the former governor of Illinois, a man who was brought down by none other than Barack Obama. On August 17th of 2010, he was convicted on one of 24 federal charges, a charge of lying to the FBI, and the jury was hung on 23 other counts. Now, these 23 other counts all stemmed from what they alleged was bribery of him trying to sell Barack Hussein Obama's Senate seat once Barack went to the White House. Now, his defense didn't call a single witness, claiming the prosecutors had to prove their case. They had to prove that he was guilty of what they accused him of. Within 15 minutes of the mistrial on those 23 other counts, the prosecution's team announced they would definitely pursue a retrial on 23 mistrial counts. Post-verdict court date was set for August 23rd of 2010. Federal prosecutors reduced the number of counts on Blagojevich's retrial, and on June 27th of 2011, he was found guilty on 17 of the remaining 20 charges, and not guilty on one. No verdict was rendered by the jury on 2 counts. He was found guilty on all charges pertaining to the Senate seat, as well as what they called extortion relating to state funds being directed towards a children's hospital and a racetrack. Now, sort of interesting, right? You may say, oh, okay, well, this man did some bad things. But it gets a little bit more interesting than that. The prosecutors had claimed that they had hours and hours of wiretaps. They wiretapped him, they wiretapped his phone, and monitored him for a very long time. So they had hours and hours of wiretap. The interesting part was they only released a few minutes of it for the jury to follow along. So this is a man now who's facing corruption charges, will ruin his life, but you withhold hours and hours of wiretapping, accusing this man of things he allegedly did. Why wouldn't you just release the tapes, right? Release the tapes. In July of 2013, Blagojevich filed an appeal with the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit in Chicago, challenging the corruption conviction and the length of his prison term. 3-judge panel of the Seventh Circuit Court heard the arguments in the case. In July of 2015, 2 years later, the court unanimously vacated 5 of the corruption convictions, including his convictions for attempting to sell Barack Obama's vacant U.S. Senate seat after he was elected president, but they affirmed the rest. So the underlying charge of what they accused this man of was dismissed. It was thrown out by the appeals court, yet all the other cases, the other charges stuck. So the premise of this case, dismissed, but everything else stays, make that one make sense. In 2016, a resentencing hearing was held because some charges were thrown out in the district court. Judge Zagel, who was the judge in this case, reimposed the same 14-year sentence that he had imposed in 2011. So you have 5 counts thrown out, including the one of him trying to allegedly sell Barack Obama's seat, thrown out, but still a 14-year sentence. To me, this sounds highly political. Like a case of someone trying to get Rod Blagojevich for something that they didn't like. Rod Blagojevich joins us now. Folks, as promised, the former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich. Rod, I've been following your case since I'm a kid, obviously a little bit younger than you, but I remember very well what went on, everything that transpired. And over the last few days, I went back over it to just refresh myself on what exactly went on. Unbelievable. For the folks who don't know what happened, Rod was initially only found guilty on 1 count of 24 counts. Jury hung on 23 counts. Within 15 minutes, the prosecutors went back and said, we're retrying him, dropped a whole bunch of different cases. They restructured the whole thing. Lo and behold, they come back and they find him guilty of 17 of the 20 charges. The process plays out. Rod comes back. He appeals this conviction. Now, for everyone who doesn't know, an appeal is extremely hard to get in America, in this country. Where he appealed, the Seventh Circuit in Illinois, in Chicago, has among the highest reversal rating in the country at just over 11%. The national average is 8%. So it makes you wonder What's going on in this corrupt city? Rod, I want to begin with your case. I'll argue that you're Trump before Trump was Trump with what they've done to you. If you will, from the inception, what possessed these folks to come after you?
It's a question I keep asking myself, and I'm asking myself this question a lot recently because I'm writing a book about the whole experience, and that book should be out this year. And it's a story that starts with one President Obama, ends with another Trump, and a lot of the story is about a government prison with Crips and Bloods and gangster disciples and Sinaloa cartel drug dealers who look up to the drug lord El Chapo the way my daughters look up to Taylor Swift. Went from a 50,000 square foot governor's mansion to a 6 foot by 8 foot prison cell in a real prison, like in the movies. There were murders in there, 950 guys. And I spent my first nearly 3 years in that higher prison. They were squeezing me. And why it happened, why they did it to me. The day before I was arrested, I took on the Bank of America. If you remember, you were so young back then, but we had a financial collapse, and as a result, the economy tanked,
Yep.
and people lost their 401ks, and the Congress decided to pass a law called the TARP bailout, which bailed out the big financial institutions just a month before they were arrested me. And the deal was that if they would use taxpayer dollars, these banks and financial institutions like Lehman Brothers and Bank of America and others, that they would provide lines of credits to companies to keep them in business, or companies were going out of business to give them the resources so they could provide severance pay to employees who were about to lose their jobs.
Right.
And we had a test case in Chicago. It was a place called Republic Windows. And the day before I was arrested, I had announced that I was going to suspend the state of Illinois doing business with the Bank of America, $2 billion worth of deposits in their bank, unless they did what they were supposed to do under the new federal law, where they were using taxpayer dollars to bail them out. And they should now help this company keep those workers not employed, but give them the severance pay that the law said they're entitled to for the next 2 months. And this was before Christmas. They could help their families and all the rest. And no one challenged the Bank of America or these companies to actually fulfill their obligation under that TARP law. But I did. And it worked. They recognized that they better do right by that company. The threat of taking that money away from them woke them up. And I went to bed that night feeling great because I thought we just did something real good for workers, which we did. But I didn't have a chance to really celebrate it much because 6 o'clock in the morning, I had the FBI, 24 members of a SWAT team, and a hostage negotiator around the house of the governor of the sitting governor of the fifth largest state in America to arrest me. And so maybe they did it because of that. I think there's more sinister motivations. I think I took on the system down in Illinois, the state government. I fought a guy by the name of Madigan, who was the sort of the Caesar of Illinois politics. He was the chairman of my party, the Democrat Party. He was the longest held speakership in American history. He'd been there since 1983.
Wow.
He presided over a system that I challenged and fought him all the time. And I have reason to believe that he had something to do with this Patrick Fitzgerald and them arresting me when they did, and like they did. And it didn't take long for them to throw me out of office when that happened. So, I don't know. It's a lot of it's speculation, but I feel like I can make a very strong circumstantial case on what it was exactly that motivated them to come and do it to me. And the great irony is that they taped all my telephone calls.
Right.
And they used only 2% of the calls, selected snippets out of conversations that were inflammatory and not very flattering, but none of them were illegal by themselves. What they won't allow is the rest of those conversations to be played so the full context could be heard. And to this day, those tapes, 98% of them, they were not allowed to be heard in court. I can't play them in the court of public opinion, haven't then, and still can't. They're covering them up, and they're covering up Barack Obama's FBI interview, which I think is very interesting as well.
I want to get to Barack Obama, who's been a central figure, Rod, perhaps better than Donald Trump, because as I said, this happened to you before Donald Trump. The power that this man has, and it's sort of like he came from nowhere to somewhere. You were more powerful at one given point than Barack Obama. And then there was some sort of falling out. What was it that happened between Obama and yourself that made Obama clearly what happened to you wasn't something at the field level, the FBI or the DOJ. This is something that Barack Hussein Obama called in, as he did for Donald Trump. What was it, do you believe, that geared Obama towards weaponizing a system against you?
Well, what I think happened was once he had the power and he became president, but well, I should say this: once he got elected president, he still didn't have the power, but he had a period between election day, the first Tuesday in November, and then the 20th of January, to put his administration together. And every new president changes the U.S. attorneys, the United States attorneys, and they put the members of their own party there. See, these were George Bush appointed U.S. attorneys that did to me what they did. But they're part of that uniparty that exists in Washington. They're insiders, and what they've done over the years is they've weaponized the Department of Justice for targeted political reasons. And they started, I believe, with me at the AAA level to a Democrat governor, took it to the next level to do to President Trump, a Republican president at the major league level. What I think happened with Obama was that when they came after me, and as they were coming after me, Obama and his team, because Obama had all kinds of issues with a guy by the name of Tony Resco, who bought him a lot next to a mansion that Obama bought. The Obamas didn't have enough money to pay for that mansion, so they wanted the adjoining lot. So they asked this guy who was very friendly to both me and Obama, the guy who introduced me to Obama in 1995. His name is Tony Resco. And Tony had purchased this lot for $750,000 for the Obamas. And Obama had a problem, political and potentially criminal problem with that. And so I think what they did was they basically, the Obama campaign and his people around him and the media was so madly in love with Obama and the idea of what Obama was at the time, it was just convenient to move everything in my direction. And I think what they did was pretty much laid it on me to protect Obama and save him. And so when they arrested me, and I should say, I was arrested because I talked about making political deals with Obama. Right. The conversation began with Obama. He sent someone to me on election night, and the guy said, Balanoff's his name, labor boss, supporter of both of us. Barack called me last night. He wants Valerie Jarrett to be the senator. He told me to come and see you and find out what you want. And so that began these conversations that they taped where we were talking, me, my staff, my lawyers, top political consultants for 6 weeks about all kinds of ideas on what kind of a political deal we can make on the Senate seat. 1,000% legal. Yeah. They criminalized it against me. Obama then walked. And Obama, when the heat came on, ran. And he made a deal with those people, I believe, to keep them in office because he was going to replace them. But to keep those Republican prosecutors in office till they eventually got me. And the deal was he would do nothing to lift a finger, nothing to help me, nothing to do justice or even tell the truth about what happened. He made a political calculation. And so I think that's how it all began. And that was his role in it. And he's been pretty steadfast about not just avoiding me, but they've taken that playbook that was used against me. Obama's Department of Justice took it to a whole new level and then applied it and used it against President Trump.
You know, Rod, if you think about it, it's insane. I'm from New York. They tried the mafia here in New York. They wiretapped all these guys, and they used every bit against it in trials. John Gotti, they wiretapped every single one of these guys' calls, and we heard it. You can go watch Netflix documentaries, Rod, and hear all the wiretapping conversations. Yet you're sitting here. They sentence you to 14 years in jail. Now, this is 14 years. You appeal. You have some of these charges overturned. You go back to the judge. He says, it's still 14 years. Doesn't matter what you're going to. That in itself should tell you that this is highly politicized. You go back, still 14 years. You can't use, I've never heard of this in my life. Is that conventional? You're an attorney. Is that conventional that you can't, face your accuser, the U.S. government? Tell me what I said. You have to prove your case against me that I'm guilty. What did I say that was illegal? Deals are made all the time for seats. It happens. It's ethical, but it's not the greatest circumstances, but it is what it is. You put in the guy that you want to put in. The predecessor usually has a say in it. We look at the seat in Florida. Ashley Moody just took over for Marco Rubio. Probably wasn't President Trump's pick. DeSantis got his pick. It is what it is. That's business as usual, Rod. How common is that in practice of law that you don't get to listen to what they've got you on?
Well, it's illegal to not allow that. It's unconstitutional to not allow that. It's the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution to confront your witnesses and to be able to present evidence that proves your innocence. And the fact that they make the tapes. Now, this is really important to know. These are their tapes. They're not mine. I'm not asking them to cover up tapes. I'm not, if John Gotti has tapes that he thinks are harmful to him, he would like to keep those things covered up,
Yep.
wouldn't he? But the
Yep.
prosecutors against Gotti want to use those tapes. It's just the opposite in my case. They made those tapes, and they, to this day, have covered up and continue to cover up 98% of them. I was led to believe by the judge in the second trial, because you're right, they didn't convict me at the first trial on any of their fake corruption charges. They got one conviction on lying to the FBI, and I didn't lie. They lied. But, it's their word against yours, and the jury, what do they know?
Yeah.
So, having said all of that, I was told by the judge, if I testify, I could play the tapes to corroborate my testimony. I thought for sure, and I'll tell you the day that was. It was May 20, 2011. I thought for sure that's the day I'll be vindicated, because they're going to hear all these tapes. They're going to see what I'm about to do. It was about to be a political deal for the people of Illinois: jobs, health care, no tax increase, with the nemesis, Madigan. And I was going to make his daughter, Rahm Emanuel, it's on the tapes, was going to be the guy to be the go-between to make that deal happen. Harry Reid is on those tapes. Menendez, Senator Menendez, who now has his own corruption issues, and that's real corruption, by the way. Menendez was the head of the Senate Democratic Campaign Congressional Committee. He's on those tapes talking to me. Durbin, our senator, was talking to me about this deal. So it's all covered up. They arrest me the next day, and he makes this big lie saying he's stopping a crime spree before it happened. Now about the appellate court. They could never uphold the centerpiece of the case, the sale of the Senate seat, because if they did that, horse trading and government would shut down.
Right.
Because everything is done by political deals.
Right.
I'll vote for your bridge. You vote for my school. Abraham Lincoln got the 13th Amendment passed that freed the slaves because he made deals with those senators to get them to vote for passage. That's how the system works. It may not be, pristine, but unfortunately that's a democracy. That's how it works. In my case, they criminalized it. The Supreme Court, after I'm sitting in prison for 4.5 years, recognized that. They reversed it. They called it nothing more than routine political log rolling. They held me there for 3 fundraising requests where there was no quid pro quo. Those were legal, but they got convictions because they used unlawful jury instructions to tell the jury the law was something that it wasn't. They custom tailored them to fit the conversation, to criminalize it. So in other words, this conversation we're having, if the prosecutors want to get you and get a jury to convict you for free speech, they just write a jury instruction that takes the specific nature of what we're talking about, and they tell the jury it's a crime.
Right.
And so the jury makes the right decision because they're being told that's criminal. So one more thing. So they vacate my sentence. The appellate court vacates my 14-year sentence from 14 years to nothing. I'm already in there for 4.5 years. 5.5 years into it, I waited another year to go to the judge to try to get my sentence, to get resentenced, thinking I'm certainly going to go home because no governor, no politician has ever done a single day in prison for fundraising violations, assuming they were even fundraising violations, and they weren't. And the judge puts me back to 14 years because he was a political hack chosen by those prosecutors at a rigged trial. All of this a prelude to what the Democrats would do to President Trump in those rigged trials in New York and in Washington, D.C. and in Atlanta and those other places.
The crazy thing is you knew President Trump long before this even happened. And it was almost like it would be nice if you could have sent him a warning, but you didn't see what was happening. You had mentioned Bob Menendez. Elon Musk wants to go check the stockpile at Fort Knox and see if there's any gold down there. And I said today, there's probably half the amount of gold down there if Bob Menendez was down there checking it out. Rob, I want to take a quick break here. We're talking with Rod Blagojevich, the former governor of Illinois, a man who was done so wrong before Donald Trump was done wrong, and it still goes on. When we return, I want to take up Obama, go further, how this man, Donald Trump's the Teflon Don, but it seems like Obama, time and time again, just gets a free pass. He gets to do whatever he wants. This was his administration, this former one we saw the last 4 years, continuing to do what he wants from behind the curtain. When does it end? We're coming right back with Rod Blagojevich, folks. Stay with us.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. We're talking with the former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich, back when Illinois was a safe place to live. It's no longer a habitable place, in my opinion. Rod, I want to turn to what we were speaking about before the break, Obama and his weaponization. I worked for a man named Michael Grimm. He's a former congressman from New York City. He was the only Republican congressman in New York City at the time, New York 11. He represents Staten Island and Brooklyn. Michael owned a health food shop in Manhattan in 2008, 2009. Just like every other business, and I say this every day, I don't agree with it. Yeah, they hire illegal workers, delivery boys, dishwashers, things like that, like any business you go into. Michael is in Congress, and he's stepping on people's toes. He's working both sides of the aisle. As you said, it's horse trading. He's fighting with people to get we had Hurricane Sandy here in New York. It completely wiped out Staten Island. He's working both sides of the aisle to get funding for Hurricane Sandy. John Boehner at the time did not like it. Eric Cantor at the time did not like it. They said, Mike, you better stand your ground. Michael said, pretty much go F yourselves. I was sent here by the people of Staten Island, and that's who I'm going to work for. Lo and behold, Obama comes in 2008, 2009. Loretta Lynch is up for attorney general. They tell Loretta Lynch, if you can get this guy Michael Grimm on something, you'll become the next attorney general. You probably remember the famous tarmac meeting. Apparently, Michael was discussed at that tarmac meeting. Lo and behold, they get Michael Grimm on the same thing, a wire fraud, mail fraud, this and that. And it was from hiring two off-the-books workers, delivery drivers from 10 years before. This man goes to jail. Former special agent in the FBI, a former Marine, goes to jail for a year, Rod, in a deal in which sent Loretta Lynch to be the next attorney general of the United States. This was another Obama deal. How many lives does this guy have? How many lives does he have to ruin, Rod, before his time, his day of reckoning comes?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I when you tell me that story, and I knew a little bit about it, so much of it is so recognizable to me because I've experienced versions of that myself. And the common denominator, of course, is Barack Obama's involvement. And but this goes to the larger problem our country is facing. The Democrats talk a big game about saving democracy. But what they've done is how they picked up the cudgel of weaponization of prosecutors. They're the ones who are the threat to our democracy. They're the ones who are destroying our democracy. The disgraceful behavior of these Democratic prosecutors against Trump in this last election, this isn't a threat to democracy. They're butchering the democracy in a presidential election right before our eyes. That's what they were doing. And the scary part is that too many Americans are so caught up in their own political party that they refuse to see the larger problem. This isn't a Republican versus Democrat issue. It's an American issue. Yep. It's about our right to choose our leaders in elections that are free and fair and not have them undone by weaponized prosecutors trumping up fake charges to get someone politically who they don't like, whether it's Michael Grimm shaking things up over there in Washington or me down in Springfield or Trump at the largest level right now doing what he's doing. Menendez, however, is an example of the kinds of guys in politics you ought to go after. You find gold bars in a senator's house and a whole bunch of cash, and he can't explain it. That's more than probable cause to think that that's money gotten from ill-gotten gains. That's the kind of corruption they should focus on, not inventing crimes out of non-crimes so they can persecute someone because they can't beat them in elections, and they want to get rid of them.
How do you make an example, though? I watching Bob Menendez go to jail. The crazy thing is he's another one. He thought he had 9 lives. He gets acquitted on a hung jury one time, and the man goes back. It's like an addict. You can't, kick your habits of being a crook. And the man was a crook. Like you said, how many senators and politicians deal in gold bars? Untraceable is what he thought. It turns out it wasn't exactly so untraceable because he's on his way to jail, as he should be. But what is it with these people, coming after them to politicize a Justice Department instead of going after the crooks of the world, the people who are really doing real crimes? It undermines democracy. The Democrats, and it's not just the Democrats, I should rephrase that, it's the Republicans too. Some of them are just as bad, no better than what the Democrats do. But yet they worried about Donald Trump. They're worried about Elon Musk. What are they so terrified about Elon Musk going to the IRS and looking at tax documents? Are they worried that some politicians who never showed their tax returns, there's going to be something on there getting a payment from somewhere that they maybe shouldn't have? What are they so worried about, Rod, if they're just good citizens?
Well, they're worried about the truth being exposed. And now that President Trump is in power and the Republicans are in power, and this new Republican Party is a Trump party, it's not that old corporate country club, Mitt Romney, John McCain, Washington Insider, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney party. It's a different Republican Party. They're afraid that the truth's going to be exposed, and all their corruption and how they corrupted the institutions of our country and the different agencies and what they've done to the Department of Justice and how they politicized everything, the IRS, and I'm sure they're going to find all kinds of corrupt behavior and how they've twisted the IRS for political purposes. This stuff's going to get exposed. So they're worried about it being exposed and their dirty actions being revealed. And you're probably right with the implications that you're providing, and that is that you'll probably see, Obama's fingerprints all over the place on some of this stuff, because this didn't just happen, in 1 week. This has been gradually happening, since he's been president. Even before he's been president, I would argue he took it to a whole new level, and it's been a continuation, with Hillary Clinton and all the different things that they were doing to President Trump after he was elected. So no, they're afraid of the truth being exposed, and it's about time. And I do think that President Trump is destined to be the most consequential president in American history since Franklin Roosevelt, since Abraham Lincoln, maybe even more so Franklin Roosevelt, because what he's saving us from is the corruption from within. And that's how America is destroyed, not from without, but from within. Yeah. And when our institutions are corrupted and the people can no longer believe or trust in the system, when they butcher the rule of law and just completely disrespect the Constitution with all kinds of stuff they've been doing, including their fake impeachments, these are the things that are going to steal from the people the freedom that America offers. And we will no longer be America, the America we've loved and believed in. We're going to be a third world country. We'll be the Soviet Union.
We're literally at war with ourselves right now. I spoke to Mark Mitchell, leading pollster for Rasmussen yesterday, for hours. And we're literally at a civil war with ourselves, the infighting between Americans, between left and between right. Rod, answer me a question. There was never any sort of payment that the government proved against you, right? That you received any sort of monetary, right? Okay. So,
no.
So there was never any sort of payment that was provided to you. You 14 years in jail. Explain to me this, because this must eat you alive inside, because it eats me alive inside watching it happen. You've got members of Congress who go there and make $174,000 a year. On their tax returns, some of them are making $20 million a year, $15 million a year. The spouses, the trading, or this or that. What is that? How does that make you feel, Rod, as a human being, knowing you never accepted a dollar, you never made a dollar from this alleged deal, this alleged bribery deal, which landed you in jail for a 14-year sentence? How does it make you feel watching someone like Nancy Pelosi providing 150, 200% returns on her investment, sitting in Congress, knowing damn well this woman's a criminal?
Look, you're right. I never took a single penny. No one even accused me of that. Right. None of it was about personal corruption. It was about campaign fundraising. I never took a campaign dollar from any of the allegations I went to prison for. There was never a quid pro quo. The judge wouldn't even allow us to say quid pro quo in court to show that you got to prove a quid pro quo for it to be illegal. It's a First Amendment right to ask for campaign contributions. The Supreme Court has said so repeatedly. And so they put me in prison for proper requests by third parties I'd even make up, with no promise, no threat. That's First Amendment free speech. And I think I was like the only guy in Illinois government who didn't get rich in the business, because they all go down to state government, they get rich. And now there's Nancy Pelosi having that 100% success rate on her stocks. Oh my God, I didn't know about that when I was in Congress. Had I known about that, maybe I should have been nicer to her. But, I feel like a chump. You're making me feel like a chump, like I totally missed the opportunity to, play ball with the system. But of course, I'm glad I didn't, because it is dirty, it's rotten, it's corrupt, and it's among the reasons why the American people correctly despise politicians and don't trust them.
Yeah, and there's a reason why, Rod, Donald Trump had that decisive victory on November 5th. There's a reason why you're seeing approval polls. You know a little bit about approval polls. You're in politics most of your life. There's a reason why Donald Trump's approval rating is through the roof. There's a reason why millions and millions of Americans supported this man through and through from 2016 all the way through to 2024. There's a reason why Donald Trump was almost assassinated twice. There's a reason why he was impeached. There's a reason why they tried to do to him what they did to you. At what point does it stop? Do you think the buck has finally stopped with 2 assassination attempts trying to ruin this man's life? Do you think that it's over? Do you think that this country can be on its way to greatness again?
I don't think it's over. I think that the persecution of President Trump by the Democrats and by those who oppose him will continue to the best of their ability, to continue to do what they can to obstruct him, to stop him from being successful, to get in the way of the reforms that President Trump and his administration are trying to do, whether it be in the DOGE efforts to reduce the size of government, get rid of the waste, which is very much real in government, in every place of government. I know this for a fact, having been the Democratic governor in Illinois for 6 years. There's all kinds of waste in different places protected by the politicians. So no, he's going to have obstacles every step of the way, but he's up to it. He's a fighter, and he's strong and tough, and he's smarter today than he was 8 years ago, the first time he did it. He's learned the ways of Washington, and you can see by his appointments, the people that he's putting in place. So he'll have opposition. They're going to try to do what they've been doing to him, of course, because that's what they're about. Unfortunately, they're not interested in solving problems or working together to make our country better. It's all about stopping him now from fundamentally reforming the system and destroying the deep state. Having said that, am I optimistic about our chances, of President Trump's chances to be successful? I am very much so. And part of it is because of who he is, the kind of fighter he is, and his determination and his skill. But I'm also optimistic because the American people are growing, increasingly learning about how corrupt the system is, and are starting to believe how true it is. And this isn't happened overnight either. It's a gradual thing. And you can even see the number of, the percentage of the vote that Trump got in 2016 compared to what he just got in 2024. As Bill Clinton said back in the 1990s, the American people almost always get it right. And they're getting it right. That's my Clinton impersonation.
For anyone who's been to the White House with President Trump, speaking of Bill Clinton, I've been there far too many times. I've gotten to see the Bill Clinton rooms. I say rooms. One of them, the Bill Clinton rooms in the White House, it's just off the Oval Office, houses all the Trump memorabilia. It's where President Trump has his markers that he infamously signs bills with. So if you ever get a chance to go on a White House tour or are so lucky, you should ask to see that room. Rod, I want to take
Isn't that the room that Bill Clinton had his cigars in?
Yes, exactly. It's something
or at least one.
Something like that. Rod, I want to take one more quick break here. When we return, I want to ask you a few questions, which the audience are probably wondering, what's next for you? You're seemingly starting a new life now over and over. The Justice Department has probably drained you of every dollar that you had saved up, as they do to everybody, or at least try to do. And what's next for you? So we're coming right back with Rod Blagojevich. Folks, stay with us. And Rod's going to tell us what's next for him, what he's got in store.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard MyPillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Folks, we're back with the former governor of Illinois, the once great state of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich. Rod, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering right now what your plans are next. Before we get to that, I got a simple question as a man who knows the courts very well. We're hearing some blowback and some pushback from the courts who are trying to stop Trump at every turn, whether it be the Doge Committee, Elon Musk accessing the IRS directory. He had tweeted something out the other day. It was pretty funny. He said, if I was so worried about going through people's private records, I could have done that when I was at PayPal with how many people use it. I don't care about that. I really want to get to the root of the problem. President Trump doesn't seem to be caring about what these courts are saying. Are there any repercussions legally? Can they go in the White House and arrest him once again and fingerprint him once again if he says to these courts, go to hell, I'm doing what's right for the American people?
Well, I think he's following the courts to the best of his ability, but he's not necessarily taking no for an answer because he's got a responsibility to the American people and to keep the promises that he made. And so he's going to try to take as many of those cases to the ultimate court, the Supreme Court, to resolve the differences. But there are times in our history when great leaders have had to recognize that the national interest requires something larger than just accepting, a decree by a judge. Abraham Lincoln famously did it, and when he began the process of saving our country and saving the Union, when he suspended habeas corpus. And
right.
There were all kinds of different court orders that came down his way that he respectfully acknowledged, but chose to do what he felt was right to keep the country together. So those are decisions and judgments that leaders have to make. That's why we elect certain people. And we've chosen President Trump to make those judgments and those decisions. The best part of it is he's the kind of guy who's going to keep fighting to get things done and solve problems and fight through the gridlock. It's a democracy we live in, and it's frustrating. Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst system ever devised by man except for all the rest. So you can't just wave a wand and get things done. But I think among the reasons why President Trump is going to be as successful as he's going to be in keeping those promises is because he thinks outside the box and he governs in a way very different from traditional presidents. Just bringing Elon Musk into this process and the bully pulpit the two of them have, being able to marshal a public opinion in a way that's never been done before because of the new forms of media that we have. This is a powerful force. And the one thing I know about politicians, there's two things. If hypocrisy was a crime, professional politicians would be going to jail and they'd probably get life sentences because they're so effing hypocritical.
Yeah.
But the other part I know is they're mostly scared. They run scared. They don't trust the people because they're not being honest with the people. And therefore, if there's enough pressure from the American people to get behind the president, to fulfill his mandate, those politicians, even the Democrats, are going to recognize that and they're going to step back and allow it to happen. So we, the people, have a responsibility to help President Trump govern. And that is what I think is we're already beginning to see. And the more engaged we are, and the more we get engaged by Trump and by Elon Musk and others, you with your program and your show, the stronger their effort's going to be and the more successful they'll be in reforming our system and making America great again. And by the way, as a Democrat, I don't understand why these Democrats, my fellow Democrats, I'm a Trumpocrat, by the way, but I'm still sort of a Democrat, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong with making America great again? And by the way, we have been great. We've never been perfect, but we've been great.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Democrats don't believe that. They don't even like our country.
Yeah. By the way, I've got to be honest, you're the first Democrat I've had on the show since taking it over from the great Lou Dobbs in July. And, I speak to a lot of Democrats off air, and most of them are extremely unhinged, Rod. There's not very many folks who are like you, who are level-headed, who can understand an issue from both sides. In your over 20 years in politics, Rod, have you ever seen a time? Now, they told us Donald Trump in 2016 was a divider in chief. He hated Mexicans. He hated women. He hated Hispanics. He hated anyone who wasn't a white male. We know that's not true, and the people don't fall for it. The people, you and I were both at the MSG rally when Tony Hinchcliffe made the joke about Puerto Rico. They told us it was done. Donald Trump had lost the Hispanic vote. He was a dead man walking. I got into an argument with Peter Navarro over a friend of mine who works for Donald Trump. And I told him, Peter, it was a joke. It is what it is. Turns out Donald Trump had gotten the most Hispanic votes of any Republican candidate in history, in particular Puerto Ricans. Have you ever seen a man be able to unite Americans, both Republicans and Democrats? He's got more Democrats working in his administration than perhaps anybody before. Have you ever seen a man who had this power to do what he's done?
No, and President Donald Trump has become an iconic figure because of the travails and the hard journey he's been on since he got into politics, and most significantly, what's happened to him this past year with all those fake charges, and then him getting shot at, and then the other assassination attempt, and that first shooting, the iconic moment when he turned his head and he hit his ear, and he stood up there and he said, "Fight, fight, fight." See, that's going to be forever in the history books if the history books are fair. And so Trump has transcended your typical political figure and your typical president. He's very, very different, and he embodies a lot of what we want to believe America can be and what we expect our leaders to be. And that is being brave and being strong and being someone who doesn't give up and someone who keeps fighting. And that kind of fight isn't for him, it's for us. Because if you're Donald Trump and you're a billionaire like that, and you live that lifestyle, and he loves to golf, and you can golf all the time, why the heck would you take this job on and subject yourself to all of this that he has to go through unless you truly, deeply love the country and love the people in it? And he is those things, where a lot of these politicians don't. I'll tell you something else. Obama, I know this guy, has no feel for the people. He gives a good speech. He reads off the teleprompter. They got a great slogan, hope and change. He gave us hope, no change. He became just basically another one of the guys on the inside, taking orders from the establishment and doing their bidding and screwing the American people again over and over again with fake promises. Trump is authentic. He's real, truly loves the people. That's why he puts himself through the stuff he puts himself through.
And you look at the tail rod of the last three presidents we've had. I don't even know if you can consider Joe Biden a president. Joe Biden, he comes out of office a week later. He signs with CAA artist agencies, getting ready to do his next gig and make $1 million a speaking gig. Obama leaves office, buys a house in Martha's Vineyard for $20 million, gets a book deal for this much money. Before you know it, this man who's never made more than whatever a presidential salary is, $479,000 a year, is living large, multiple houses, Hawaii, this, that. And then you go look at Donald Trump, the only man who lost money in the presidency. You'd hit the nail on the head. He was already president once. He's a billionaire. He's got a house. He's got a supermodel wife. He's got a beautiful family, a successful family. All of them have jobs. All of them are highly successful, married with kids. He doesn't need this nonsense. He doesn't need this BS from the Democrats trying to get this man killed. Why does he do it? It makes you wonder what is in it for this man. There's literally no gain. You're already a president in the history books, Mr. President. There's nothing else for you here. Does he love this country that much?
I think the answer is obvious. And I'll say again, he's an instrument for something higher. Yeah. I believe deeply my faith in God, my Christian faith, I always had it, but during those 8 years in prison, I had an opportunity to draw closer to God by reading the Bible every day and being so alone. But I believe in destiny. I believe from time to time, God chooses certain people to serve larger purposes. I think he chose Lincoln for a purpose to save this union and what Lincoln called the last best hope on earth, this new country that was created by the will of the people. No other country before that was created this way. I think Trump was chosen, I do believe this, to save it. This guy that doesn't fit the mold and who's different and has to go through all the different things that he's going through. So yes, I think he very much believes and loves this country. And I would say this, but based on my experience, 6 years as a member of Congress, 6 years as governor of the 5th largest state in America at the time, the divide in our country is less about Democrats and Republicans and the things that the two parties traditionally have stood for. It's more about we the people fighting up against the ruling class, the establishment in Washington, the establishment in state capitals like ours here in Springfield. It's the governing establishment that co-opts people of both parties. They become part of a club. Yeah. They're part of that club in Washington, Democrats and Republicans together, and they agree to disagree within certain parameters. And when you get a guy coming in from the outside who basically says, you know what, we're going to change this. It's no longer going to be the people of America working to preserve the establishment. It's going to be the establishment working to represent the people. You see, that's the big change. And that's why they hate Trump so much and they've been trying to destroy him, because they like the gig they have, which is basically we the people work for them.
Yeah.
They don't work for us. You feel what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And you know what the other thing that I often say on the show is Donald Trump, I love the man. I absolutely adore the man. But he doesn't look like a president. He doesn't look like your typical president. He doesn't have the comb over. He doesn't. Mitt Romney looked like a president. Was he ever a president? No, he never will be. George Bush looked like a president. He doesn't look the part, but he certainly plays the part and has done a hell of a job. And I think that's what kills these people, Rod, because you know very well how the political business works. It works like that here in New York, and I'm sure it works like that in Illinois. You become a chief of staff or a member of a city council or whatever. They term limit out. You become the next member. And then guess what? You term limit out there, Rod, and you go to the state Senate. For states that are on the state Senate, then you go to the next level and you go do your legislator. You kiss as much ass as you possibly can on the way from the bottom to the top. And then one day somebody calls you on the phone and says, hey, I want you to run for Congress. You've just hit your next level up in the system. And it's exactly what it is. Someone who's an outsider, Rod, you can't get the money. You can't get the funding from the party. The whole thing's a huge circle jerk. And if you're not part of the boys club, you never will be. Kiss your chances goodbye unless you've got millions of dollars. Your thoughts?
You hit it on the head. You're exactly right. That's precisely what it is. And that is changing now with President Trump and Elon Musk. And what's great about him is you got the wealthiest guy in the whole world. He doesn't have to do this unless he really believes there's something wrong there. And you know what? I've learned from my experience when I had power as the governor, it's a rough job. It's tough. And when you're really shaking it up and you don't play ball, but you challenge the system like I did, like Trump does at a much larger level and a far more important level, there's joy in that. Because if your heart is right and you really think you're on the side of the people, and then you achieve certain things around that or through that those obstacles, there's a real sense of joy. And I think Elon Musk is starting to taste that too. And I think the combination of Trump and him and the other people that he's put in his administration offers a real great hope for the American people that we're going to see real meaningful change and actually have a government that serves us as opposed to us serving it.
Rod, it's been excellent talking with you today. I hope you'll come back soon, especially after you get that book out so we can help you sell some copies. Before we go, I've got to ask you a question that the audience is probably saying, what the hell is he waiting for? We want to know, what's next for Rod Blagojevich? Do you have any political aspirations? What's next for you?
I'm writing the book that's going to come out this year. I've got 190,000 words written. I've got to bring it down to about 100,000. And I'm getting close to doing that. And so that book's important because it tells, a very unique story that I explained a little bit earlier. There's been some talk about ambassadorships and stuff like that, because I went to Serbia a couple of weeks ago where my father came from. And I met with the president there, President Vučić, who's doing a great job in Serbia, bringing back a country that was wrongfully bombed by us in 1999. They've got the second greatest economic growth in all of Europe. Real wages for working people under President Vučić is up 270%, and other kinds of things that they're developing there. And so people are suggesting that maybe I might, be interested in being an ambassador to Serbia. But I have to tell you, John, I haven't asked President Trump for anything. I didn't even ask for the pardon that he gave me. That's how good a guy he is. I felt like when he brought me home from prison and gave 5 years ago on this day, in fact, and gave my young daughters their father back. It's the greatest gift my daughters would ever receive in their life came from President Trump. That he did more than I could ever hope for. And so all these other things that have come my way and what he just did for me a little over a week ago, pardoning me, cleaning my record, because there were no crimes there, but he didn't have to do that either.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful to him. So if he asked me to do anything to help him, I would drop everything to help him and to do something I can to serve my country in some way. But I'm not asking for anything. I'm just grateful for this new beginning. I'm very hopeful for my book. And I got to tell you one last thing, John, and this will never happen to you. But one advantage of being in prison for 8 years, even if you didn't do it, but you're there for 2,897 days, you know what it is? It's when it's over. It's like you've been dead and you've come back and you've been given a new life. And even the smallest things are great. The simplest things are great. Talking to you,
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It would have been even if I had never gone to prison, but I bet you it's a lot better now. I can appreciate moments like this than before. And so in so many ways, I feel blessed and lucky. I've got a great wife. She's the best person I've ever known. I love my daughters. They're great girls. My wife, Patty, raised them great. They're honest. They're good. They do great in school. They're like their mother. I've got all kinds of blessings, and I'm so grateful. And the future, whatever it is, it's a new beginning. And I think the odds were years ago, I would never have this new beginning, and I have it. And I thank God for it because I do believe it's a miracle.
Yeah, we thank God for it. I mean, it's truly sickening. You go through life, you go to college, you have student loans, you go to law school, you come out, you're an upstanding citizen, you think you're doing what's right for the country. And then one day the knock comes at your door, and it's you got the right to remain silent. And it's the craziest thing in the world. And hopefully I never have to go through it. But with how weaponized things have become, Rod, you never really know what's going to happen. As you know, and like I said, we're thankful to President Trump for granting you that. And that was something I failed to mention before that I had written down, that you didn't ask for anything. You didn't ask for a pardon. You didn't ask for a commutation. It's President Trump. And for anyone who doesn't know President Trump, he doesn't do anything he doesn't want to do, right? There's nobody in his ear telling him you have to do this, because that doesn't work with the man. He does what he wants to do. And your pardon and your commutation, I'm almost positive it came directly from President Trump, not somebody else here. Rod, you get the last word here. It was amazing talking with you today. I hope you'll come back soon.
No, thanks, John. Thanks for having me. I'm going to wish these words for you and for your audience. It's a few lines from a timeless Irish prayer. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sunshine warm upon your face, the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you so much for joining us. You're a great American, and keep up the fight.
Appreciate you. Thank you. You too, John.
Thanks to former Governor Rod Blagojevich. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did speaking with him. It's really wrong what they did to him. A weaponized Justice Department. They can get anybody they want, and they will get you if they want you. That's just the truth of the matter of it. Sad that this is what it's come to in America, but it's the new reality, and we've got to all be cognizant on what can be done to us and how they can do it. So we got to keep our guards up and keep on fight for this country and fight for the values that it was built on, the fabric of the values that it was built on. Folks, we hope to see you right back here tomorrow for the Great America Show, where our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. Until then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.